Hey YouTube, in this video we're going to be taking another look at Dragon's Dogma 2. This time we're going to be using a much older PC, so this is going to be a Zen 2 based, so that's Ryzen 3000 series from 2019, paired up with the RX 6700 XT. Like I said in the previous video, the GPU isn't really going to limit us too much for the tests that we're doing. These are mostly CPU bottleneck tests, just to kind of show the graphics settings. It's the exact same settings that I used last time, so 1080p with an uncapped frame rate, and we're not using any sort of upscalers here, and then we are using ray tracing and all the settings maxed out. So it uses just under around 8 gigabytes of VRAM, or it allocates up to 9 gigabytes. This card has 12 gigabytes of VRAM, so that's not going to limit us in any way. So just to kind of show how it runs in Vernworth, which is the most notorious place in the game, it's the hardest place in terms of CPU utilization. You can see the CPU is at 57% utilization, almost 60%. That is very high for a game. Typically games don't use that much CPU, but in this case this one can use upwards of more than 60% of the CPU to run the game. And the frame rate is very similar to what you can expect on a console. It's probably about 10-15% better than what you would get on a PlayStation 5, because the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X are also Zen 2 based in terms of their CPU architecture. So it'd be similar to this CPU. However, this CPU does clock higher at 4.2 gigahertz versus the lower clock speeds that the consoles have to maintain, because they're in a specific form factor and they have to stay within a certain power limit. So you can see the CPU pulls about 62 watts of power, anywhere from like 50 something to 60 something in terms of the wattage on the CPU. If we go outside the city here, just to kind of show the performance outside, now the game doesn't really go un-CPU bound, so to speak. Now you can see we're at like 56 FPS. Even when you're outside though, this game is still very demanding on the CPU. So if you have a higher end GPU, the game could potentially run significantly better out here. You can see we are like anywhere from like 50s, 40s, 60s. Doesn't really change too much. It is kind of all over the place. When we go back into the city though, that's where the problems arise, and we dip into like the mid 30s to low 40s. When you're outside it can hit around 60, and then if you have a higher end GPU, then the outside does actually benefit from a higher end GPU. But see, as soon as we get back in here, the frame times go up and the frame rate goes down. So that is the way a Ryzen 3000 series runs this game, which is a CPU from 2019. So it is kind of old now in terms of how fast technology changes, but it's still capable of running the game just fine. It is definitely playable with that console-like experience, although it is not ideal for gaming on PC. However, that's why PC has such a wide variance in terms of the overall performance compared to the consoles, where you can get much better performance with much newer, more expensive hardware, or you can basically get that console experience if you have a 5-year-old PC. So with that being said, I hope you guys found this video interesting and useful, and let me know in the comments below if you play Dragon's Dogma 2, what system are you running? I'm very curious to know the CPU, because the CPU is actually what determines how good your experience playing this game will be, not the GPU. Unless your GPU is some ancient, GPU from 10 years ago, then you might have problems. But if it's a relatively, 5 years or newer GPU, you're probably not going to have many problems in terms of graphics horsepower. It's really going to be the CPU that determines what the overall experience is like. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get on out of here, guys. Thanks again for watching, and I will catch you guys next time. Thanks.